Welcome back to News One Now. From coast to coast, protests, rallies, and marches again taking place as folks express their anger. You also had folks there in Ferguson continuing the protest, and we saw a much larger National Guard presence last night. We didn't have the same type of outbreak that we saw on Monday night take place last night. Joining us right now is retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore, who is quite familiar with these sort of situations. General Honore, beyond just what's happening in Ferguson, we also have police in other cities who now are having to cope with folks literally shutting down freeways and shutting down major venues. How would you advise not just law enforcement, but also the protesters when it comes to this sort of civil disobedience?
Yeah, understand we got a civil right to assemble and be heard. And when it comes to civil disobedience, the protesters need to understand that you do not have to become violent to demonstrate, as we saw last night with so many of them just occupying the streets. Now, where we have a friction is sometimes when the police decide, which is the law, you generally can't walk in the middle of the street. Then you got some cities you got to have a protest permit and right to assemble permit. All that being said, I think what it demonstrated last night is across the country that protesters are learning the skills of protesting and being civil disobedient. Civil disobedience said, I'm going to do something, government, you say I can't do to get your attention. And in that last night, there was a big walk in the street, got a lot of people attention across the country. Then at some point in time, law enforcement said, well, you got to get on the sidewalk or you can't block the intersection. That's civil disobedience. When you do civil disobedience, you need to be prepared to go to jail because you will be taken to jail. Normally it's a short stay, catch and release type program. If in the process of doing civil disobedience, violence happens and you throw a rock or you hurt somebody or you destroy somebody's property, that's breaking the law. And you not only go to jail, you could end up in prison, depending on the severity of the damage you created. So I'm glad to see last night, even across the country, the police kind of got the word that people have a right to assemble. And when they go to walking and they block the street, they're doing civil disobedience. That in itself isn't a cause for shooting citizens.
Gotcha.
The job of the police is to secure people and allow them to speak. And when you have an emotionally, nationally charged issue like this, the best thing they can do is let the people be heard.
I want to go to the panel right now because here's what's interesting. When the general talked about being prepared to be arrested, and I'm speaking again in terms of plans of action. When you have organized protests, one, you anticipate there are going to be arrests.
Right.
You identify the lawyers who are going to go down to jail to get you. You also have bail money lined up. And we see this spontaneous action. And I get it, but I think it's important that as this goes on, so now we're going to be looking into the third day. We'll see what happens on Thanksgiving. We'll see what happens this weekend. This is also why I think it's important to be able to organize this.
Right.
Because, you know, one of the criticisms that I had with Occupy was that it was sort of all over the place and it wasn't moving towards something. So yes, folks they had presence. Yes, they were they were commenting on social media. Yes, they were putting up videos. But you need to have a plan of action to sustain it. Otherwise, when you lose the spontaneity, that's it, Cleo. It's gone.
It's a good idea that you are saying this and that it's on national TV, and maybe some of these young people will hear what you're saying, because you and I and others on this panel, I believe, come from a period where there was a precedent set on how to do this. These people here we don't pass history along, unfortunately, on a large scale. And in fact, so they're winging it.
And in fact, what you said, a woman tweeted me and she said, you know, thanks for your advice, but we're just learning as we go. And I said, sister, you don't have to write a manual. It's already been written. Ask those who've already done it who can help you out.
But there's also a credibility issue, which you've heard me raise a lot of times. And I agree with what you're saying in terms of logic. But the reason why some of these young people don't come to the older people, because they're like, look, the bodies have piled up. If you was right in the first place, there wouldn't be no bodies. Exactly. There wouldn't be no Amadou. There wouldn't be no Eric. There wouldn't be no Trayvon. There wouldn't be this. So we're not sure we need to listen to you. And
exactly.
They should.
You saw yesterday, Al Sharpton did the old let's have a summit routine, which is the same thing that they always do. So these young kids see this and they say, oh, wow, another summit. Isn't that something? Like the last summit saved the life of Michael Brown. Well, of course it didn't. The other thing is, you probably noticed yesterday Phil Agnew was arrested. I hope he's out by now.
Philip Agnew, the Dream Defenders.
And I think that, you know, one of the problems that these people are having is that the police, particularly in Ferguson, make up the rules willy-nilly and arrest people based on nothing. I mean, I watched on the live feed, they arrested some people for standing on a porch. I mean, all of a sudden that was illegal and you're under arrest. So one of the problems here is figuring out what the cops are going to do and what they're going to make up as law as we go.
Right, but Kim, go ahead. I'm going to honorate for the last comment.
I think some of the bad police departments could learn from some of the police departments that are doing this better. Because like I said, I was protesting last night here in Washington, D.C. Let me tell you something. The cops accommodated all thousands of us, okay? They were in front of the
First of all, in D.C., they used to protest.
Exactly, but you know what?
There's one every week.
And the police don't bother you as a I am walking in the street. I am disobeying civilly, but the police were expecting it. They were professional. They handled the crowd accordingly. There were no problems.
General, got about 30 seconds left. I still think it's critically important, and I want you to speak to, again, moving towards organized protesting, because it's one thing to have all of this support. It's one thing to sort of marshal people together, but after that dissipates, what are you left with?
Well, we've got to focus on what's going to be the political off-ramp. Is politics going to solve this? We need a new response 2014 that is proliferated by the federal government, that states sign into. For instance, if a youth get killed without a gun by a policeman, that automatically goes to the state attorney general. It's not handled at the local level. When you have something happen inside a county, like a policeman kill a youth without a gun, that needs to go to the next level of government. Number two, we need to retrain police. We need to pay police a decent wage. Most of them are working 2 jobs. They're stressed. They don't get enough training. They have no martial arts training. And we need to get technology on police, cameras in their cars and cameras on them. We can do better. We need a restart. What we do is not working, and this needs to be a political objective. Coming out of Washington need to come quick so people can tie into this, that something different is going to happen.
All right, Lieutenant General Russell Honoré, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Coming up, we'll chat with some millennials about this movement here, and I want to ask them specifically about yesterday's news conference and call by Reverend Al Sharpton for a emergency civil rights summit.